is from Aaron Humiston. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He's on Twitter. I would definitely recommend checking him out. He's actually a 2D animator at Blue Sky. And I'll post a link right in the chat there for everyone as well. So I would definitely recommend checking him out. He's got a lot of cool animations. Now, this was an animation he did for Spread the Love, which is a YouTube compilation of animations. But I wanted to focus on his because it is just absolutely adorable. And so squishy. So this animation is just so much fun to look at. When I saw this, like I said, I was scrolling through Twitter one day and I saw this and I just had to watch it like 3 or 4 times. It was so cute. And what I really love is how much he pushed this. How exaggerated it is. The expressions on this character are so much fun to look at. And not only that, there's so much motion. This character isn't stiff, it's so fluid and just alive with motion. So I wanted to go through how did he achieve this? How did he get so much life in this character? And how might he? I don't know for certain. This is going to be an analysis. I could be completely wrong on his approach. But how can we kind of try to replicate this if we wanted to animate something like this ourselves? Yeah, exactly. It's so gooey. It's just so good. I love it. So there's 2 main elements to this that, at least for I'm assuming it's an ogre. For the ogre, there's 2 main elements that I find really help sell the motion and the clarity of this shot. The first one is that he's really pushing the contrast, the squash and stretch of the character. So what I mean by squash and stretch is if we just look at the key poses. So let's say we've got a key here, and then the next key would be this expression. And I shouldn't say just key. These are like the golden keys, the golden poses. Golden poses is a term that I believe old Disney animators used to use, which is basically the poses that are, another word for it is the storytelling poses. A lot of the keys here, they break down the motion, they tell us how things move, but if we just look at the story, these ones here are going to tell us basically everything we need to know just in terms of story. And then we've got that one. And one last one here. There. So these would be kind of the storytelling poses. And I believe, yeah, there we go. So we get this. Starts off miserable, curious, kind of, I don't know what this expression would be exactly. It's like irked and like doesn't know what's going on. And then, oh, he's so happy. And we get the little pose. This is the pose that only pets get to see. And then the happy ending here. So how are they so appealing? Well, really, it's just that they're contrasting so much. If we watch how much of a change is happening in the character, the animator is really pushing the visual contrast on this, and especially in the facial acting. He's also doing it in the body, so you can see how this pose here is just big and square. It's just this very big, it fills the screen basically with this square shape, the head right in the middle. And instead of just, oops, I reset my range in the wrong spot. I always hit the wrong hotkey. This is the fun part of what's the word I'm looking for? Using different programs is everyone uses a different hotkey, and I always mess it up on this one. There we go. There we go. Aha. Back to it. So we start with this big square shape. Everything's kind of square. Even his head is this square-ish form. Now, on the next pose, they really push that line of action. Really push everything to flow and to pull away from this heart. But in order to keep it focused, you'll notice that the line of action actually flows back in right here. Everything, even his eyes, everything pulls back. Even his ear here pulls right back to the heart. So our focus is on the heart. We can see that he is focused on the heart. As much as he's pulling away from it, he's still looking at it and curious about it. So we get this big shape change that happens. Now, as he reacts to it, suddenly the form becomes a little bit more upright. This gives us a nice visual contrast between him and the cat, and kind of gives us a moment where we're unsure what might happen. So here, the heart is actually a little higher than him. You'll notice that he's actually looking up at it, ever so slightly. This kind of gives the feeling that the heart could be something dangerous, could be something that could hurt him. Who knows? He's scared of this. He's smaller than it. Now, when it turns into a cat, suddenly he's bigger. He towers over this cat. This gives the impression that, well, now he's in control. This cat he could just do whatever he wants to it. It's just a little kitten. He towers above it. That gives us that nice contrast once again. If he had caught the kitten and just kept it at that same height, we wouldn't have had an interesting story moment right here. Now, as he comes in, he starts to level himself off. See how the shape change now comes in and it pulls towards the cat. Here, it's pulling away slightly. The line of action is, if we look at the body, is kind of doing that. So it's kind of this S shape that kind of curves towards the cat a little bit, but not really. It's, if you look at the line, it's almost like the cat is impacting him. Let me kind of make this clear. So if you kind of imagine the cat like pushing a line into the character, it's pushing the character right in there, and you can see how his line of action actually is affected by that, how it curves and gets pushed by that line that the cat creates. Even it's kind of like an invisible punch. Even though the cat is just sitting in his hand, we are visually seeing how the sight of the cat is what's causing the reaction. It's not just some random line of action here. They work together. The two characters are creating a beautiful composition together. Now we come here, and suddenly that reverses, where instead of that line of the cat pushing him away, the line of the cat is drawing him in. We've got the little cat here, and now all of the lines pull right in. That line of action is now curving in through the eye right to the cat. That makes a beautiful contrast between these two poses. It's not a huge pose change, honestly. The hands aren't really moving. The head doesn't move that much. It looks like it moves a lot, but that's mostly the jaw. If you actually look at the cranium, that would be like right here. Not a huge move, but we still feel it. We feel that driving force, that attraction to this cat. Now we get here, and suddenly he's lowered himself even more. he's almost eye level with the cat. You compare that to here, look at how high his eyes are compared to the cat. So as he's coming in, he's bringing himself lower and lower to the cat's level. He doesn't fear it anymore. Now he wants to protect it, and we can kind of see how that line of action, everything is, you've got this curve here. Let me clean that up. This curve here of the back that leads to the cat. The curve of the arm leads to the cat. The face leads to the cat. Even the line of the mouth, as jagged as it is, leads to the cat. Everything is coming in towards the cat now. And we get this nice big contrast. The camera even moves between these two poses as he comes down. Right through here. Look at that. Beautiful motion right there. And you can see right here how the eye levels, if we were to draw a straight line, it's pretty close to the level of the cat. And now he comes up, and now he's looking at us, the audience, not the cat anymore. And again, there's this nice contrast. And if we were to break this on thirds, the whole scene here, so third is about there and about there, his eye level is right on a third, which is usually the upper third is kind of like, I guess you could say the horizon line or eye level for a lot of shots. This is a good place to have a character kind of focused on us, the audience. It's not too low, it's not too high. And they line that up very nicely so that the ogre, the orc, can look at us, and we get this really nice connection with the character. And the cat jumps right in to fill the whole screen. So we've got this really nice contrast all through there. And a lot of it really just comes into how they're pushing the line of action, how they use the cat or the heart at the beginning here to influence this character. He starts off very neutral, very stiff, and as the shot progresses, we can see his curiosity, yet fear, his, I guess, suspicion, or like somewhat of like disgust, or what would be the term here? It's kind of like just shock at what just happened a little bit. We can feel that, and then the sudden attraction, and then the sudden caring, how everything comes into this cat here. So that is the first thing, the line of action. And honestly, you could tell this whole story just with a line. And this is something I'll often do when I'm planning out a shot, especially when I'm studying my reference and I want to exaggerate it, because I'm not the most flexible person. When I shoot reference, I can move a little bit, but I'm not a dancer. I'm not super agile. So a lot of times my reference ends up being kind of stiff. I don't want my animations to be like that. I want my animations to be fluid and dynamic. So what I'll do is I'll just take a line. So for example, I'll just take my planning sheet, and I might kind of plan out the character. So let's say in this case we'll have this, and we just deal with the straight line of action. Now he reacts. Well, this whole reaction could just be the line of action being pulled like this. Okay, and actually let's exaggerate that a little bit more. So it's like that. Okay, now this line of action goes up into the S shape before coming in and leaning forward, before really going in and leaning forward. And then we get a nice kind of raise up here. So, just looking at that line, let me actually get rid of this pose here. Okay. So just looking at that line, we can see a dynamic animation happening. And I could push this a little bit more. Like right here, I'm not feeling a huge change. I would probably try to move it, straighten it a little bit more. Just in the line. I'm not, the animation moves amazingly. I'm just talking about my line here. Yeah, that's better. So there we go. Just by looking at this line, even this one could be pushed a little bit more to really push that forward lean. Just looking at this line, I can tell that there's a story happening. And I could add like a little head to it. So kind of add the face in there, add legs, whatever. But I'm trying to plan out the shot just with the line of action and see if it's contrasting, if there's a change throughout. If my shot ends up being, okay, the line of action starts here, and then it kind of bends this way, and then I get a little S shape there, and then it leans forward here, leans a little bit more forward there, and then eases out like this. If this is all I'm getting, that's not interesting. You can see how that bottom line there, there's no visual change to anything. It just kind of wiggles around. So even before I get into animation, I can take my reference and try to exaggerate whatever lines I see to not only exaggerate the poses, but also to tell a better story based on, for example, the reaction to this element that he's seeing here. And that's a great first step, because now you, even before you start animating, you have this goal that you can reach. This exaggeration. You're still following your reference, you're just exaggerating it as well. And it keeps you from rotoscoping, just copying exactly. So that's kind of the first thing here, is we have this ability to just look at the line of action and see how the form of the poses really help tell the story. And they Aaron does such an amazing job on this in this shot. Now, let's actually, I don't want to lose these drawings, so I'll see if I can maybe duplicate this. Can I? Or can I make a new timeline? I don't usually use this here. No, that's... Oh wait, I know. It's here, I believe. There we go. Oh, no. Oh. There we go. Haha. I really like this tool. So now let's focus on another element. So the next one I want to focus on is, how do they make everything so squishy and it flows so well? If we watch his face, you can just see how expressive and soft it is. The expressions are so good. Well, first of all, a lot of it is squash and stretch. That's really what it comes down to. So we talked about the line of action before, but if we just focus on the face this time, let's pick a different color. What if we just kind of look at those main poses once again and look at how far his face is stretching? So looking at the brows and then the line of the mouth. We could even look at the chin and the head right there. And watch how much that spacing exaggerates itself. So from here to here, you can really see how it stretches. Think of it like a spacing chart. Look at the brows. I usually look at the eyes as well. So there. Think of it like a spacing chart. How is the spacing of the face changing throughout the shot? If you're animating a shot and the spacing always stays the same, where the mouth is always the same level, the brows always stay at the same level, or they might just move a little bit, just a tiny little bit. Is that interesting? Is that dynamic? Maybe you're animating a subtle shot and that's what you need for that. Sometimes you don't want too much motion. But a lot of times we tend to animate in a more cartoony style. Well, exaggerate, especially the up and down of the brow and the up and down of the mouth and chin. Because we can actually go from here. You can see how high my mouth is here. And then all the way down there. And you can see that my chin is moving too. I'm actually opening my mouth even though my lips are still closed. I should say opening my jaw. So you can do that. There's a lot of range of motion in that bottom half of the face. The brows can move up quite a bit. There's a lot of range of motion here. We can exaggerate that. In cartoons, we can get those brows up to the hairline if we wanted to, or even past. That's not a problem. So, exaggeration and the dynamic spacing of the face. So now it comes in, we get into this pose here. Let's look at that spacing. See how the brows suddenly go way down into the eyes right there? The mouth comes way up away from the chin. Look at that. That big change right there. You really feel it in the brows. That distance right here compared to here. How that gets much bigger. Another line you could look at is the line of the nose, kind of underneath the nose right here. So you can see how that gets wider here, and then it pretty much disappears right there. So we're really seeing this change. This is so... Look at that. See, I was saying about the brows going above the head. That's what's happening here. I'm going to put the line there because it's should be kind of like that. Okay, there. The mouth, if we're looking at the line of the mouth, well, now the mouth's open, so technically the line of the mouth, I usually look at the bottom lip, but you can look at kind of the center, whichever you prefer. As long as you're kind of taking one line into account, that's fine. But now we get that. Look at how much it opens up. They're also pushing the line of action of the face. The line of action of the face here creates this kind of line. This one reverses that. So you have this nice big contrast in the face here. Okay. So we have that. And then the next thing we have here is this pose. Let's get to that one there. So cranium, brows, eyes. Look at the nose and the mouth there. And then the chin's way down here. Big change. Not only that, they're really pushing the in and out of the face too. That's something we've talked about a lot in previous streams. When you're animating lip sync, you really want to get that motion in and out. That's very important here. And then we get to the end here. Once again, very big change. So we're seeing this development happen in the face. This squash and stretch, the spacing of the face, in a sense, is being adjusted. Now, if you really want to break it down, when you're looking at the face, you can break it down into kind of two areas. You have the area that's typically called the eye mask, which is this area right here. It's the brows all the way to kind of the bags of the eyes, this kind of area right underneath the eyes here. not just at the eyelid, but the area around there, kind of the upper cheekbone area. So all of this, that's the eye mask. You can kind of think of it like a superhero mask if you've seen The Incredibles. It's that shape that goes right there. And then you have the lower face, which typically you can kind of count it like at the bottom of the nose. I kind of like to think about it like the nostrils as well, because the nostrils do have a lot of motion. And I'll even typically include kind of the end of the nose too, because as I do this, you'll notice the end of my nose moves around quite a bit as well. And this kind of affects that whole area down here. So the face is kind of broken up into these two segments. They work together, but they are a little bit of they're somewhat separate. So I can move the bottom half of my face, and you can see it doesn't really affect the top half, or I can affect the top half. And unless I'm doing like a big squint, if I'm just moving my brows and blinking, there's not much change down here. Then you get things like squints, that'll affect both because it's the whole face contracting. But if you kind of view the face like this is another way of kind of breaking it down. Personally, I like to view the face as a whole just because I find it more interesting. So I tend to look at it kind of like this, where I just look at the spacing of the face. And this doesn't have to be a perfect spacing chart, like perfect ease in, ease out. It's not that kind of spacing. It's more just looking at the relationships between the different elements. And if you start planning that out and thinking about that, you can start making a more dynamic shot, because you're making sure that the relationships aren't just staying the same all the time, especially when you're going from contrasting emotions. If you're going for a sad emotion and the brows just kind of go, oh, and they don't really change, you just get a little crease in the middle, and then happy, and the brows don't change. Where's the contrast? We don't see it. They might change shape, but they're not moving up and down. We want that visual change. And can I analyze animation from Your Name? I could definitely do that. I haven't actually... Have I watched Your Name? I know I have it. No, I don't think I've seen it yet. It's actually on my list of things to watch. Yeah, that is. Okay, cool. I'll try to watch it this week, and then I'll see if I can make an analysis for it. I thought I had seen it, but no, it's on my my to watch list. I keep hearing good things. So we've got that part of the face. Now, what else can we get out of this? Well, we've got this spacing, and really this breaks down into squash and stretch. This is a stretch pose. This is somewhat of a squash pose. It's squashing in this way. Stretch, definitely. Squash, coming in that way. And then this, I would consider this a stretch pose, but it's much less stretch than before. So we're going from squash, so squash, stretch, squash, stretch, squash, stretch. You can see that all the storytelling poses, they contrast each other. Now that doesn't need to happen. You don't have to do that, but in this case it worked out, and it makes it very dynamic. Question. So already watched Kimetsu no Yaiba. Did I watch that one? Oh, Dragon Slayer. No, I haven't. I actually watched half of the first episode, and then I got busy, but I definitely want to check it out. I've seen clips of it and the animation looks amazing. Weathering with You. I know Silent Voice. Silent Voice I haven't seen yet, but it's definitely on my watch list. Weathering with You I haven't seen, but I just googled it here. Okay, I'm definitely adding that. The animation looks beautiful. Okay, so Weathering with You, Demon Slayer, and then yeah, I've got a whole lot of movies to catch up on. My movie list, like there's so many that everyone talks about it and I haven't seen yet. It's like, oh no, why? Especially like Your Name. Everyone talks about that one. And I remember when it came out, it was this big thing and I missed out on it completely. I Love Dogs I've seen. That one's really good. Continuing with the head here, we've got the range of motion here. But how else are they kind of pushing this? Well, let's see if I can make a new timeline here. Not that. I want to drag it in here. There we go. So, how else are they doing this? Well, one thing that glitch tech. I've seen some animations from that. It looks amazing. It's probably on my, it's the next thing on my like series watch list. I've got one other series that I have to get through that I'm currently in the middle of, and then Glitch Text is probably going to be the next one. And Curious George 3 I haven't seen, but was it Curious George 3 or the first one, the movie? The animation was really beautiful on that, although I never saw it. I just saw clips of it. So we've looked at the contrast of the face, but one thing that can be very tricky when you're trying to deal with facial animation like this is there's a lot of complex motions going in here. If we kind of look at this at just playing, there's a lot of distract both from listening. It's a joke, but it is too true. I am so easily distracted. If I was a teacher in like a regular classroom, someone would just need like a laser pointer and I'd be like gone. The whole lesson would be derailed. So the way they're animating this is very beautifully done, because amid all of the complexity, there's a simplicity to it. So there's all of this facial stuff, all the lips, the brows, the ears, the skin, I guess you could say, all of it compressing and changing. But if you break it down to its core level, all of it is following one thing, which is the skull. So let's take another color here that will hopefully show up through all of it. So if we kind of just simplify the head to just kind of this ball here, as it goes through, just focus on that general form. So for example, as this comes through here, there's just this ball of the cranium, I guess you could say, coming through, and everything drags from that point. He comes in, that cranium just eases in. Nice ease right there. As he reacts to this, the cranium pulls back and everything drags from there. It's just the skin dragging and then overlap. So if we simplify this down, it's just this ball going back and then changing direction forward, and everything overlaps over top of that face. So we just get that. As it comes forward here, same thing. So we've got the cranium here. It starts the motion downwards. I love that frame. It starts the motion downwards here, and you can see how that causes the the face to drag right there. It comes through here and comes back up there. All the other elements are just on top of that and enhance it. But the core motion, the motion of the character itself, not the skin, not the overlapping and secondary actions, is simply a ball. It comes down here, goes down, and it's just this simple arc that comes through here. Comes down, you can see how the face is dragging, and it eases in, this very slow ease in right there. And then from here, it just eases out and comes to a stop here, a nice ease in. But that's all it is. All it is. Oh, see how simple it is? Haha, anyone can do it. No, it's, yeah, the hoof. It is, you do have that hoof right there. And a beautiful overlap on that. Yeah, you're right. It is in the cat's face right there. So if we kind of break this down now, look at that motion. It's really just a sphere kind of bouncing around. It comes in. We get a little bit of a hold right here. So it comes through, holds. There's just this little bit of a sharp movement back and then forward. And then these very basic motions forward. Just this kind of slight anticipation right there into this slight arc upwards. And then an anticipation into this arc downwards. Into an ease. That's really it. Once they have that, that gets the core motion of the character. That gets the weight of the character in place. Once you have that, now it's adding the details. I see a lot of animators when they start, especially, let's say you're dealing with a character like this. Now, hopefully no student has to deal with a character that's got this much detail right from the start, but let's say you have to deal with a character with some detail. Right away, a lot of students will start to put in those details. Okay, where are the ears going? Where's the brows? Where's the face? How can I push this to an extreme? And it doesn't even have to be a face. Body mechanics. They will start to try and put all of these really complex motions and poses and mechanics into the body. But if that core motion, in the case of the body, it's usually the hips. If the hips aren't looking appealing, nothing else you do is going to make it work. If that core element is not sound, it won't work. It's like trying to build a skyscraper, but if your base of the skyscraper isn't solid and isn't going to hold up the rest of the structure, all that beautiful tower is just going to come crumbling down and it won't matter. So instead, you want that base to be solid. Same thing here. You could do all this beautiful facial animation, but if that core motion of the head doesn't work, what's the point? It's just not going to be appealing. So you can plan it out with just a sphere. If that looks good, then you're good. So I don't think this is going to work too well here because I put so few drawings. I don't even know. Can I make it so that these hold? I don't think I can. I actually need to update Keyframe MP because they added a whole bunch of new features. I wonder if I can just, yeah, let's do it this way. So if we kind of look at it like this, you can see how that core motion is, it's very simple. it's not a how to put it. It's not a big mess of motion. So if you can simplify things down, it makes everything else much easier. And if you can make that core motion appealing, everything you add on top of that is going to add to the appeal, as long as you do it correctly. So this is where learning about contrast and overlap, overshoot, all of those things can really help to enhance the animation versus take away from the core. So for example, just to go over that, let's say I have a core motion of my body going this way, but if my hand, if I want to add that in afterwards, just does this as well, I've taken away from that core motion, because now I've made this robotic feeling. But if I drag that hand over that core motion, now I get that adds. I got the core motion first, so this nice motion there, and then the hand adds onto it, or maybe it leads. It could go before the core motion. So you're using that to enhance. You can add motions and it'll take away, but that goes into a whole bunch of other elements there. So let's go back here. So let me catch up with the chat, because I saw we've got a whole bunch of new follows. So Tracy, Mats, Jad, sorry, Pablo, Monochrome Moose. That's an awesome username. Thank you so much for the follows. I really appreciate that. Let's see. Catch up with the chat. I have seen the YouTube channel Frame Order. I need to look at it a little bit more, actually. See, don't you feel like it got tougher and more firm and in control before it could technically see its size? I'm assuming that was on something I was mentioning before. I'm assuming you're talking about like right here, where he kind of gets to this point. Let's see. Okay, cool. Let's see. I failed a bunch of animations, got too tired to do them, so I'm working on the free program Fire Alpaca and making images and forming them into storyboard stuff. That's always taking a break is always a good thing. If you work on something and you feel like you're just not getting it, take a little bit of a break. Do something different. Now, this goes into a whole other talk that we've had before on the stream here, but there are a lot of things. Let's say you're trying to learn animation. Animation is very tricky and hard to learn, but you can do it. But you will have those times that you're working and working and it's like, I just can't get it. I'm hitting a wall. So instead of just continuing to bash yourself against that wall, try to do something a little different. One thing I like to do is I'll go back a few steps. So I'll just do some quick tests. Let's say I'm animating a shot like this really complex shot. It's almost 200 frames long. Well, I'll do a 20 frame shot of just a character turning their head, and let's say I'm having trouble animating the overlap on the face. I'll just do a 20 frame shot of a character just doing that, and I'll try to animate the overlap and try to understand how to approach it. This way I'm not trying to fight that concept on this larger shot. I'll try to break down whatever it is I'm struggling with to its fundamentals so I can understand that. Other times we're animating and you just get tired of animating. That's not a bad thing, especially if you're doing it for a living. It can get to the point where it's like, I've had enough. I love animation. I don't want to quit animation, but I need a break. Now, you could just do random stuff, which is great if that's what you want to do and if you feel like that's going to recharge your batteries. But if you're still interested in continuing to learn, there are different things that you can approach that will improve your animation skills, but in different ways. So, for example, creating storyboards or learning about storyboards. That's a great way to improve your storytelling and your planning so that future animations, you can actually plan them out better right from the start. Doing gesture drawing or figure drawing helps you learn anatomy and how to pose out a character, which helps your animations. Learning about composition and cameras. Taking photographs. Like, just take your phone and take pictures of things and try to really focus on the composition and trying to tell a story with that picture. That helps you to frame shots. So when you get into your actual animation, you know how to put the camera and get a specific feel for it. All of these kinds of things can help to improve your animations, but you're taking a different route to it. Master studies, exactly. Doing something like this. Find a clip that you love and just study it. Break it down. Try to understand what it is that makes this clip so darn fun to watch. So, yeah, definitely break things down. Don't feel like if you're learning animation, for example, you just have to learn animation and that's it. You can take little breaks. Get back into animation at some point, but if that's the goal. But those little breaks, they don't have to be a stop. They'll still push you forward. So let's kind of look at one more thing on this shot, which is just his reaction. There is a couple of things that I just want to point out here. So let's get that in there. Perfect. So, leave the breakdowns to the animations on your mental health. Exactly. That's a good one. That's not just a pun. That's like life advice right there. So, the main thing I wanted to point out here, yesterday we talked about expressions and how eyes lead typically the expression. So I won't talk about that today. But one thing I did want to talk about was this beautiful little double blink. And this is Keyframe Pro. So Keyframe MP Pro. Which, if anyone's interested, this program, there is a free version of it which doesn't allow drawovers, but you can frame through things really well. The pro version allows you to do the drawovers and all of this stuff and have different timelines, which is really cool. I really like it. It's $75 American, which isn't too bad. I use this program almost on a daily basis when I'm animating. So for me, I got my money's worth in a week. It's so useful. And then I think with the pro version, you can even export the drawings, kind of like how you can do it in Sync Sketch. You can export them into Maya, which is really cool. You could also use Sync Sketch. The big thing with Sync Sketch is limited to, like, there's a certain amount of frames and a certain file size that you can do. Yeah, so it's only good for small files. With this program, I could bring in an entire film. If I have a movie on my computer, I can bring it in and analyze the entire film, scrub through the entire film right away, which is really cool. If I'm watching a film and going, oh, that was really cool, drag it into keyframe and then scrub through. I don't have to try and cut it down to just that scene or anything like that. So, in terms of facial stuff here, I just wanted to point out two things. One is, I love this little double blink here. So as he comes in, he blinks here. He reacts, kind of closes his eyes as he is adjusting his view. Looks at this, and then you can see there's this extra blink right here. So we have a blink on 37 and then another blink on 41 before he then reacts, and then you get this blink when he actually gets smacked in the face by the heart here. But what I love about this is how quick it is. This eye pose here is only open for 2 frames. So you'll see it's closed on 38, open on 39, 40, closed on 41. 2 frames. Now, typically, at 24 frames per second, which is what this is animated on. As humans, we need about 4 frames to react to something, to be able to register that something has properly happened. Now, does that mean that everything has to be 4 frames or longer? No. It just means that things that we want to have visibly demonstrated. So for example, if I'm going to go a pen, that pen, in order for the audience to register what that was, needs to stay on for at least 4 frames, if not longer. If I suddenly bring my hand up and I've got something else, that needs to stay up for at least 4 frames in order for the audience to register that it's happened and then move on. If we want to register a hold, so I move forward and stop, if I want the audience to register that as a hold and not a hitch, it has to be at least 4 frames. But we can make things happen in less time as long as the audience just needs to feel it. If the audience just needs to feel, for example, I move forward and I want a little hitch in the motion forward, I can have a pause that happens for 2 frames and then move forward, and that creates that little hitch in there. The little extra, one term for it is adding dirt into your animations, is it's creating this imperfection, which can be very interesting. And in this case, they're using that as a way to add just this extra feel to the eyes, where if we play this at full speed, you register that there was a double blink, but you don't see it, you feel it. When it's playing at speed here, you do not see the individual blinks super clearly. It's not like blink and then open and then blink and then open. We don't see it. We feel it though. And that is okay. That adds this dynamic feeling. So don't be afraid of adding these little elements. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that this is animated on 2s. So for anyone who doesn't know what that means, is each frame holds for 2, or each key holds for 2 frames, each drawing. So for example, this drawing here is on 36, or sorry, let's say this one, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, and then this area right here is animated on 1s to make that nice ease, nice and clean. And this is Disney level animation. The animator here, Aaron Humiston, he's actually a 2D animator for Blue Sky, which technically is owned by Disney now, I believe. So technically it is a Disney animation in a sense. A Disney animator animation. So these are held for 2 frames. Now, what this means is, let's say I wanted to replicate this in CG. So I'm a CG animator. And many of you here are probably CG animators as well, especially if you're an animation mentor and any of the online schools. So how would we replicate this in CG? Well, the big thing what we wouldn't want to do is, let's say we've got the eye closed here. So this is the closed pose right here. Eye closed. I'm gonna just draw this out super quickly. I cannot draw as well as a DreamWorks 2D animator, so I apologize if this is going to be super rough. But hopefully it'll show the concept here. Okay, and then we'll get into this pose here. And I would highly recommend, as I'm drawing this out, I would highly recommend checking out Aaron's Twitter. He's got a lot of really cool animations on there. Okay, so we've got this. Now let's actually just look at our annotations. So we've got the eyes here, closing and opening. Okay, so the main thing that would happen in CG typically is that the computer would start doing too much for us. So, for example, we've got the closed pose here and then the open pose here. What a lot of new students would end up doing if they're trying to animate this really quick double blink is let the computer do too much work. So for example, between this pose and this pose, the pose in between, the brow would kind of come up here and the eye would be halfway open. Oops. So it would be open like this. And then as we go forward, as the eye closes down here, so on this frame, as the eye starts to close, it would close halfway. So you'd get a little bit of that. It would actually be a little lower here. So you'd get that closing motion. The brow would start to come down. Something like that. And then the same thing would happen here. As the eye starts to open, the eye would kind of be half open. There we go. Keep it simple. So you'd get something like this. So closed. This is the key that he had. This is the breakdown. So breakdown, key, breakdown, key. Now breakdown, another term for it is an in-between. So if we're looking at the 2D days, this would be the in-betweener's job, adding these keys, typically. And then this is the main key. So we get something like this. Now, does that work? Yeah, it can. But that motion would end up feeling very just kind of, like it would be very floaty because we wouldn't hit the poses very hard. It would just be close, open, closed, open. Like this slow, closed, medium, open, closed, medium, open. It would be very bland. So instead, we would want to exaggerate the spacing on the eyes itself. So for example, on this pose, instead of having the eye pretty much open, have it barely opening, where the eyelid, you can see it starts to open, maybe just the tiniest bit right there, and then it pops open like that. Now as it's closing, don't let it close really quick. It can start to close, so here we've got some white space over the pupil. Well, here maybe it's like that, but it's still dragging upwards. So something like that. So we can feel that eyelid starting to close down, but it's not all the way, and then it hits. Same thing here. Now as it's opening, let's favor that again, where it's starting to open, then it opens and holds. So what this creates is now everything will be on ones, which in CG, unless you're going for a stylized approach, typically you're going to end up being on ones because that's what happens when you go into splines. But instead of letting the computer just take control of it and make this really soft looking animation, now we've got it on ones, but we are still favoring those holds, the closed and then the open, and making it so that that double blink is, instead of just kind of being soft and mushy and just kind of being up and down, it becomes more interesting. Basically, if you think about it like a spacing chart, so let's say you have the up motion here, so this is the up motion right there, and then the down, and let's actually put the frame number, so 37. Okay. So yeah, it goes up first. So we're going from 37 up to 39, and then from 39 down to 41, and then back open from 41 to 43. So like that. So it's open, close, open. By default, Maya is going to do this, or whatever animation program you're doing. And you can see that as it goes up and down, what that'll do is just create this very boring, even transition. It's not going to be interesting. So what we're doing is we're just doing this. So as it opens, actually it's going to be more like that. It favors the closed. Then as it closes, it favors and then favors again. You can see now how it creates these holds. This is a hold. This is a hold. This is a hold. Even though we're adding those extra frames, we don't have to let them be in the middle. We don't have to let them just be boring and transitionary. We can use them to enhance a specific moment. I know this is, I hope this makes sense, but it's one of those concepts that, especially when you start getting into high level polish, this is what's going to get you that extra detail in there versus letting the animation die a little. And this is where a lot of animators, when they go into splines, that's the main issue, is that they're letting the computer do too much work. They're letting whatever program they're using basically dictate how the in-betweens are going to work. So as much as it's just a simple blink, it illustrates a lot of key points that can help improve your animation in a lot of ways. Now, the last thing I wanted to look at in the face here is just how the heart hits his face right there. And actually, let me double check the chat here because I think I missed some stuff. Let's see. Let's see. What do you think about Ghost in the Shell CGI version for Netflix? I've actually never seen anything about it, and I've only actually seen Ghost in the Shell once, and it was like at 3 in the morning. I ended up falling asleep on the end, which sucks because it was right at that awesome like robot fight in that like pool of water, which I actually have to rewatch it again. I was half asleep through most of the film, so I don't remember most of it, which is a shame, and I still have to watch the second one too. So I haven't seen much about it, unfortunately. Let's see. Have I ever tried 2D animation? I have not, although I do want to. Now, technically, I have done 2D animation in the sense of I've done animatics, I've done little animation tests to see what my animation might look like before I actually throw into Maya. But to do a full 2D animation, like a proper one, no, I have not. But I do want to so badly. I love 2D animation. And Johan Animates, hey, congrats on your first paycheck. That's awesome. Your first paid animation job. That is so cool. Congrats. That feeling it's a weird one. It's like you've been training, animating, and then suddenly you're being paid to do that. I remember when as a student, I went to Animation Mentor, and I was paying to animate. So I was paying to get a mentorship, I was paying to be taught, and I was animating. And that moment when suddenly I'm animating and someone's paying me to animate, I'm not paying someone else. It was a very strange and kind of surreal moment of, this is what it's supposed to be like. This is much better. I like this. This is cool. So congrats. That's huge. So I'm gonna get totally distracted on another topic if I keep going on. But yeah, huge congrats. So I wanted to talk about one last thing on this animation, which is when the heart smacks him in the nose. And specifically what I wanted to show here is how Aaron here is using that smack of the nose to tell a little story. They could have easily gone with the basic motion here, where the heart hits him in the face and he just gets smacked by it. And I've talked about this a lot, where when you're animating something and you want to have impact, you tend to skip the contact frame and you go right into the impact. So for example, if I'm animating a punch, I wouldn't have this frame here where the head doesn't react but the fist has touched the face. I would just go from here and then next frame right into the impact, right when into the face starts to get smashed by the hand. If you want to make a softer contact, you show the contact where things haven't quite reacted yet. That's what he's doing here, and he's pushing it even further, where as the heart comes in, you can see it zooms in, zips right through, about to smack him in the face. And instead of it hitting his face and we get this like scrunched up nose and this impact, it touches his face and then touches his face some more and then wraps around his nose. It's hugging his nose. It's not hitting him. It's giving him a little hug, and it holds, and you can see it still holds on. It just holds on, and he's pulling away from the hug. He's not being hit in the face. It's a soft action. And if we look at it at full speed, you can feel that. How as it hits, there's this kind of slight pause. It comes in, and then he pulls away. That is really nice. If they had animated the other way, where they skipped that contact frame and they brought that heart in, right into the nose, and he starts reacting too soon, we wouldn't feel like it's him pulling away from the nose or from the heart. It would be him being hit in the face by the heart. So that little motion right here is crucial. The other thing that they're using to really push that and exaggerate the feeling that he is pulling away is where the motion is originating from. So as it hits him in the face, or as it contacts his face, look at what moves first. It's not the nose. If we look at the spacing of the nose, let's get rid of this drawing here and this one here. If we look at the spacing, the nose travels this far. And there we go. So it travels that far. That's still pretty far, but look at the cranium. It goes that far, a little further. If we look at the lip, that's barely moving, so that's not leading. But you can see how all of the motion is kind of leading up here. So the nose goes upwards, the lips going upwards, the brow barely moves at all, so that's definitely not moving, but it's moving this way. The ear, if we look at the top edge here, is kind of being pulled this way. See how everything's getting dragged, and we can see the direction of that drag is actually right at the ear. Look at that. Look at that spacing right there. Everything is pulling in towards his ear, or specifically the back of his head, because the ear doesn't really move on its own. So the back of his head, his cranium, is what's pulling back. He's reacting and twisting away from this thing, but it's his head that's doing it, not his nose. So that tells us that even with this little motion, this one breakdown right here tells us a whole story of he is pulling away, and it's not the heart pushing him away. It's not the heart hitting him in the nose and pushing his head backwards. That little bit right there, that one breakdown, really makes a lot of it tells a story, and how it leads into the rest of the breakdowns is really nice as well. So really watch those impacts, those moments where one thing contacts another. It's not just a mechanical, okay, contact, done. So you have your ease in, okay, I don't want to ease, contact, and then done. That's it. There's a whole bunch of things you have to ask yourself. How is it contacting? How hard is it contacting? What's going to lead? What's going to react? Is he going to notice it first? All of these things come in and will play a part in exaggerating the way it moves. So there's a whole bunch of other things we could go into on this shot, honestly. Like I could talk about this shot for we've already done an hour on this, but we could keep on going for forever. But